Hello and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Cedar Falls for August 11th, 2021 meeting. You have lots of choices to join our meeting tonight. You can still join online via Zoom, our Channel 15 YouTube channel, and others you can find on the website. And we do have several people in the room tonight. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And Karen, a roll call.
Okay, Hartley. Mr. Hartley is absent tonight. Holst.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Leeper.
Here.
Lynch.
Here.
Ms. Perdeau is also absent tonight. Saul.
Here.
Schrod.
Here.
And Ms. Sears is also absent tonight.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you, Karen. With that, we have minutes from the July 28th, 2021 meeting, and I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed, same sign. Okay, with that, we'll transfer to old business. To public comments. Does anyone that have public comments on an item that it's not on the agenda tonight? Now is the time to come forward.
Nothing in Zoom.
All right, we have no one in the room or online, so we'll move forward with our old business. And the first item is a land use map amendment for West First Street, and that item is being deferred to the August 25th Planning and Zoning meeting at the request of the applicant, so we'll move on from that. New business, our first item is a minor plat for property at 2520 and 2522 Hiawatha Road. And who's going to be speaking to this one? JD?
That will be me, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Yep, so the case is about a minor plat subdivision for lot 17 Green Acres. This property is located in Green Acres subdivision, and it's the highlighted lot on the screen is the lot 17. The request here is to make to divide this lot into two parcels or two lots. And the other thing I want to make sure on this subdivision is this subdivision was platted in 1967, if I'm not wrong. And the highlighted dot on the screen is basically in R2 zoning district, and currently it has a 2-unit dwelling that sits on it. And so the plan or the proposal is to create 2 lots of this existing lot. As you can see on the screen, it will be dividing the existing lot into parcel G and H, and will be having 1-unit bi-attached dwelling on each lot. 1-unit bi-attached dwelling in R2 zoning district is required to have 40 feet 35 feet of minimum width and about 4,000 square feet of minimum area. The current lot is about 80 feet wide and 180 feet long. So the petitioner is proposing to create the parcel with one lot, which is parcel G, which is going to be about 36 feet in width, and the other one is going to be about 44 feet in width. Both the parcel meets the zoning code requirement. Also, both the existing the existing structure meets the setback requirement as per zoning district. Both the houses has their separate utility connections, so they won't be having any problems in future. So our recommendation is community and development staff has reviewed the proposal and recommends approval with the following stipulation. Any comments or direction specified by Planning and Zoning Commission, and conformance to all city staff recommendation. The last thing I want to address is all the legal paperwork are in place, but staff would require all the required signature and stamps before we proceed to council. So that was for it. We might have applicant James and Pamela Smith online, but their connectivity might be an issue because of storm. So if they are here, they can support the case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, JD. Any questions for JD before we get going? All right. Is anyone from the applicant that would like to speak to the item?
I do believe they're online. I can unmute and see if they'd like to speak.
If so, you can raise your hand on the Zoom call. If not, that's okay too.
Yeah. They're unmuted at this point.
Okay. All right. Seeing none, we will go to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this item? All right. You could have your name and address, please.
Randy Hashman, 2607 Hiawatha Road. I guess maybe I didn't understand, is you considering that two different houses? Isn't it more of a duplex?
Yeah, it's actually one unit by attached dwelling, so yeah, they will have a common wall,
Okay.
but that would be, yes, 2 units.
All right. Are they planning to sell the properties as like a condo affair? Because I see the width is not very wide on each one.
As far as the applicant is concerned, we haven't received any further directions on it, so.
Okay.
yeah.
So each unit would sit on its own lot, so they could sell each lot separately.
Okay.
I think their original intent, and maybe they can comment on this, was to be able to sell each unit separately. So there wouldn't be condos, they would be just sold as separate properties.
Would the connecting wall or breezeway, whatever it is, that would still stay intact?
Yes,
It would. Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to that item? If so, you can raise your hand. If not, I think we have the answer. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the item? All right, with that, let's bring it back to the commission.
Well, it looks pretty straightforward to me. I mean, it meets all the criteria, and it looks like it's very, sometimes when you try to subdivide these things after the fact, they're a little messy, but this seems like it's pretty clean and straightforward. So with that, I would recommend approving, or make a motion to approve.
Second.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, with that, we'll have a roll call vote. Karen?
Holst,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Leeper,
Aye.
Lynch,
Aye.
Saul,
Aye.
Schrod.
Aye.
All right, that item will pass and move on to council. Next item of new business is a rezoning for R4 Multiple Residence District to C2 Commercial District at 515 West 2nd Street.
Thank you, Chairperson Leamer. The site is located on the northeast corner of 2nd and Iowa Street. The two lots that are considered rental properties. The house at 515 West 2nd Street is a single-family residence, and the house at 523 West 2nd Street is a two-family conversion. The McDonald's is on the west, and the car wash is to the north. Both of those properties are within the C2 district. And then the properties to the south and east are within the R4 district, as well as residential uses. The applicant proposes to combine the car wash lot with the two smaller lots and redevelop the area into a fast food restaurant with a drive-through lane. As with any rezoning proposal, the staff looks at 3 criteria. And if one criteria is not met, the staff recommends denial. And in this case, the rezoning request is not consistent with the future land use map in the comprehensive plan. You may recall that the city approved the Imagine Downtown Vision Plan in November of 2019. And in that process of adopting that, it became part of the comprehensive plan. The vision plan divides the downtown into character areas, or what we look at as future land use designations. The two lots are within the Overman Park neighborhood. The vision plan notes that the Overman Park neighborhood is a stable residential neighborhood of primary owner-occupied single-family detached houses with a few small offices in close proximity to the Main Street Parkade. The intent of this area is to protect the residential character and allow limited residential infill to the scale similar to the existing houses in the neighborhood. As part of the Imagine Downtown Vision Plan, part of the process was to move forward with that plan is to look at the regulating zoning criteria, or update the zoning in this area, as well as adding a new regulatory plan. As you may recall, the staff has moved forward with this application to rezone this area and provide a new regulatory map. As shown in the screen, that the two properties are within the neighborhood small area. After extensive public review period and careful consideration, the Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation to the City Council for approval. The City Council is reviewing the proposal through work sessions and committee of the whole meetings, and staff anticipates the public hearing in September. For those who want to follow forward when that meeting will happen, please go to www.cedarfalls.com/agendas for more information and updated council agendas. So during that process with the Planning and Zoning Commission of the regulatory plan, the applicant, Kevin Huberts, provided testimony to the Planning and Zoning Commission requesting that this area, those two lots, be changed in the regulatory plan to request that the general urban frontage designation be extended to 2nd Street. As shown in the document above or on the screen, as well as in the record, staff reviewed this proposal as pros and cons. And the pros would be showing that the urban building form standards would be for the entire lot. But the cons would have, would undermine the scale transition from higher intensity mixed use First Street development to the 2nd Street. The code provides considerable flexibility for parcels within more than one frontage designation to shift the frontage designation according to specific needs of development. However, it's important for those buildings and the forms to be along the street and to match the street frontage. And with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission provided direction to the staff to leave the regulatory plan as it is moving forward to City Council. And with that, staff recommends denial of case RZ 21-006, the proposal of 515 West 2nd Street and 523 West 2nd Street rezoned from R4 to C2 because of the inconsistency with the vision plan, as well as the moving forward with the new zoning that's currently under review with City Council. Staff also recommends the commission set a public hearing for August 25th at your next meeting for a formal consideration and public comment. And I am available for questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions for Michelle before we go to the applicant? All right. Anyone from the applicant that would like to speak to the item? Name and address, please.
Jeff Ruppel. I actually live 1210 Heather Glen, Dubuque, Iowa. So, but I am the gentleman that is looking at trying to find a good use for ourselves, and I wanted to at least present to you guys. It is a Wendy's that we are looking at to be able to put in this location. It is one that, and I have some drawings here to be able to say, I understand what the city's trying to accomplish. I think there is a right way to be able to do it. But when you look at the size of the lot and what's remaining there, it'd be very difficult for a commercial property to be able to exist on what they have there. And with the investment we're wanting to do and put into the whole thing, I think there's some, it should fit in with the plan overall. I understand what doesn't, but it's like, would like to share here a couple copies of these. I apologize, I have about 5 copies, so I didn't quite run enough. But these are renditions of what our current version of a Wendy's would look like. There's also some renditions of the internal, of some of the internal dining rooms, because Wendy's has changed. It is to look a more modern look. It is meant to be a little more slick, kind of that urban feel to it. So all of that has those, we have plenty of outdoor seating is also the thing that we're looking to be able to do to take advantage of the area and what's kind of happening in there.
All right, any questions for Jeff since we have him up? None?
Yeah, I do have something.
You haven't done any.
In looking at this, would this actually be fronting First Street then?
Yes, I have to use get a civil to be able to draw.
Right.
But yes, I could see, it just depends upon, the biggest one, it does, for our business, we do want to have the pickup window and the convenience for that. So it just depends upon how it lays, but I would absolutely see that we could push it, especially that access of the outdoor seating, try and push it up as far as we can. It just depends upon the traffic flow is what I'd have to.
Would the car wash then go away?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yes, part of the whole plot is to be able to have that also.
Is there not any reason that a proposed use or layout in this site wasn't submitted with the, to support the?
When the initial conversations with the staff members, they gave me a pretty strong saying, because it's residential, and it's like, I'm trying to make sure that before I, would absolutely love to draw something up, but it's to know what would work and what needs to happen. Wanted to kind of start the process to be able to see what we could get to, get a sense for at least, so that we can then go, okay, how does that lay out and what's it look like for you?
All right, thank you.
It's about the zoning initially.
Yeah, I just want to state that we didn't receive anything for the record, so we'll need to have whatever you've presented to the commission entered into the record, and we'll need copies for official record, so, yeah.
Absolutely, they're renditions, and so it's just to help give an idea that we're in support of that too, an understanding of that, so.
Right.
Okay.
There is one key word in the proposal that's before the city council right now, and it says future. And if anybody can figure out the future, then kudos to them, because the First Street is going to be a prime, with all the work that's been done, it's going to be a prime business area. So, yeah, the future thing bothers me because we can't predict the future. If we could, I don't think we'd be here.
Any other questions for Jeff?
So would you have any intentions for any kind of mitigating work that might be done that would separate the Second Street side from the rest of it? Because, I mean, really, if you look at what the proposed zoning is, there's a pretty strong concern for, the immediate neighbors, residential neighbors on Second Street, Franklin, right in there. So that, and that property that's there now, I think they're probably rentals, and they're kind of serve as a transition. The problem with the McDonald's that's there right now is it's kind of, there's McDonald's and all these individual residences, that are jammed up or kind of infringed upon the way they interact. So, I mean, I wouldn't, if we're going to do something like that on this property, I would, need to understand, how the interests of the surrounding residential properties would be protected, because having to drive through in a, can I take your order, constantly going on and living across the street from that, could be a problem. It would be a problem for me. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on how those kind of items would be addressed, if there's, portions of the property that could be used as separation or that type of thing, because they're, that's been the big concern kind of right in this area, is how do you transition from commercial to residential? And, just having one and then the other doesn't always, they're in conflict, so how does that get dealt with?
No, perfectly understand, and I mean, from the noise of our speaker, that can be controlled. That can be, especially if it is of a nuisance from that standpoint. I drove along there also, and it's kind of a mix. What strong facilities are there? What's willing to reinvest even in some of the along that old Second Street. So there's some good and bad, and I have a number of locations that butt up right against residentials. In the past, and that's we always work to have a mutual understanding and working with whether it's the lighting or whether it's any sort of speaker from the speaker post that's usually pretty close, and the layout can kind of direct that so it's not back towards the neighborhood. But again, I would absolutely take that in consideration as we drew something out to make sure that the nuisance isn't there. So.
Could Second Street become a buffer zone?
Absolutely. Because it is, when you look at it even from a McDonald's standpoint, unless there's regular complaints, about that, able to work with it, and I think we could be good neighbors for that too.
Well, here's the tough spot, Jeff, is that we've just passed a vision plan, and this doesn't meet that vision plan. So that's a difficult, I think, position for all of us to take. As one of the first projects that are going to come through it. So it looks like a good project, is whether a project is the right project for here, I think, ultimately. So any other questions for Jeff? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
With that, anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? If you could say your name and address.
Mary Jane McCollum, 807 West 2nd. I live in this neighborhood. Even the back of McDonald's is not commercially zoned. When it was built in 1980, I believe, the back half was left as a residential lot. I don't know why, but this would be the only exception, which then leads to, as you mentioned, future. What happens next? Does then all of Second Street become an issue for commercial zoning? You cannot. Right now, McDonald's sits across from an empty lot, and the lights don't shine into anything. Wendy's will sit right across from several houses on First Street that sit next to the railroad tracks. And you cannot buffer the sound. I don't care what you say. You cannot buffer the smell. I can smell McDonald's now when the wind's in the right direction. And now we're going to add another restaurant. Right across the street are excuse me, single-family homes, apartments, people who bought those homes without the thought of ever having to deal with commercial restaurant going in there. And I don't think this is the location. There's talk right now about building west of, by Fairway and out by Walgreens. That may be a better place for something like this because there's nothing right now in that area, and it would be a better location than building on First Street because it will carry the commercial zone all the way to Second. And the traffic on Second is already a problem, and now you're going to compound that problem by adding cars exiting, and I don't think the city will want to abandon that alleyway that runs through there. I don't think you vacate alleys in Cedar Falls either. And that's going to become an issue as well. And right now I'm looking at talking to some of the neighbors, and the few I've talked to are not very happy about this plan. I sat on all the visioning meetings. Even the consultants said, if you start putting commercial zones on Second, you're going to have neighbors coming at you with pitchforks. And I had to laugh, but that's kind of the truth because these houses have been there for 100 years. Some of these people have lived there 50 and 60 years, and they're not happy about what they're seeing, this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for not bringing your pitchfork.
I have one in my garage.
Any other members from the public that would like to speak to the item? Name and address, please.
Kevin Harbert, 1715 Whispering Pine Circle, Cedar Falls. I am one of the owners of the 515 and 523 property. We've owned them for probably 28 years, I guess. We bought them, they were already rental properties, and we've maintained them as rental properties all these years. This development, I realize, is maybe in conflict with the vision that has been cast. One of my questions is, because I've been getting conflicting information, is this visioning, is it already law? It's been voted on, and, I mean, we're done? That vision has been accepted?
Karen,
I know you said it's
could you speak to that item,
approved
Karen?
by who?
So the vision plan has been approved by council in November of 2019.
Okay.
So, and then we're
So
in the
it's the
process
law.
of, it is what the guiding document for rezoning applications.
Obviously, for us, we think this is a good development for Cedar Falls. It cleans up those two lots, the car wash and our rental properties, who honestly, we're not going to dump much more money into these things. So at some point, they'll probably get torn down. But I just think you guys should give this thing a hard look at, and because it is good. It would be great for Cedar Falls. It would look a lot better, and the tax base would be huge for you compared to what we're getting now off that. So anyway, just my comments.
Thank you, Kevin. You can. Name and address, please.
I'm Sally Timmer, 203 Tremont Street.
Ben Timmer at 203 Tremont as well.
So we just want to say that we support the staffing's recommendation about leaving it as a residential area. We live kitty corner across the street, and really, you know, it's been decided and agreed upon that we want to keep that area residential, and the neighbors all feel that way as well. And it would be sad to see a fast food restaurant come in and ruin the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah, we're not excited about all the potential problems, the garbage, the noise, the traffic.
We already have a ton of McDonald's garbage in our yard.
Comes right across. These guys will be our backdoor neighbor.
And as Mary Jane said, traffic is also very, Second Street's very busy already too. So we'd hate to see more of that without some kind of mitigating things going in to help with the traffic as well. Also, you know, we actually live in this neighborhood and would be affected by this, where the other gentlemen who have come up would not, you don't have to deal with the effects of what would happen living next to that every day.
Yeah, I highly doubt either of them would want to live backdoor to a Wendy's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all we have.
Thank you, Tim and Sally. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the item?
Jim Benda, 1816 Valley High Drive, Cedar Falls. I think some of what needs to be considered here is the block that we're talking about. The vision plan calls for 2 different buildings on it right now, on the commercial portion of it. If you look at those 2 buildings and you look at the amount of parking that is allotted for them, if they are successful enterprises at all and have any employees at all, they're going to run out of parking. And those folks are then going to find their parking stalls on 2nd Street and the surrounding neighborhood. So my point in all this is that the commercial spaces that the visioning plan is setting forth are too small. A whole half a block, and I was here, I don't know, a few months ago, just to bring this up so that maybe it would gain some traction with some discussion. But if you take a whole half a block, you only get 30,000 square feet. 30,000 square feet, as architects, you know that this is very difficult to build on, with parking, with water requirements, with everything involved in order to be able to build something. So we aren't trying to harm our neighborhood. We're actually trying to put the cars on the lot so that they don't go to 2nd Street and 3rd Street and Tremont Street in the surrounding area. Because I think that's what we're voting for now with the vision plan. These lots are too small. They don't provide enough on-site parking, which is why you want shared parking, is what the label is. But that shared parking infringes on other people's rights. And those are private property owners as well. So there's a few flaws maybe in the thinking that this is all good. Now, we could put on small buildings on small lots and hope that these folks don't do well, which just creates turnover. So let's try and park the cars on the lot. Let's come up with a screen that accommodates some folks. I mean, there's commercial property zoning on Franklin Street all the way to 2nd Street now. Has been that way for many, many years. I owned those properties for 18 years. They were both zoned commercial, 121 and 117 Franklin. And the properties behind them, I believe some of those are commercial too. But you see what happened when we have a very small spot and we got a coffee kiosk instead of a coffee shop, which he wanted to build there and was discouraged by the city because it didn't meet the visioning plan. And we're trying to come to you before this is law, because our understanding is that while this has been adopted, the zoning component is part 2. And that's where we're at today. So let's talk about properly sizing things for success. And maybe let's talk about maybe some alternatives to shared parking, which is basically saying we can't provide enough, so we have to share. And putting 2 parcels or 2 pieces of commercial building with less parking is only going to lead to a traffic disaster and parking problems on 2nd Street. So I feel that if you make the commercial all the way to 2nd Street, you park the cars on the parcel, you're better off. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the item?
We have one from Zoom.
Okay.
Stefani?
Stefani, I think you're on. If you unmute.
Yeah, thanks. It's actually Stephanie, but O throws everyone off.
Hold on, Stefani. I think we're having some audio issues.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
Stephanie.
Stephanie?
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
I'm so sorry.
They both
me?
work.
You're going to have to speak up because we can hardly hear you, though.
Okay, well, I can hardly hear you all. So my name is Stephanie Schmidt. I live at 214 Tremont, and I agree with the concerns that some of my neighbors have shared, specifically regarding the trash increase. I know that that's not necessarily to do anything with the owner of the business, but the folks who go through drive-throughs create a lot of trash that ends up in our neighborhood. And with the addition of scooters, it has increased the traffic on 2nd Street as well as on Tremont significantly, and adding another drive-through venue would only, I imagine, increase that traffic more. We have many uncontrolled intersections in that area, and just in our block alone on Tremont between 2nd and 3rd Street, there's 10 kids that live there. And they like to play outside, and they want to be outside, and our families enjoy being outside. But people come through there on 2 wheels. There's yield signs or there's no signs, and I just am concerned that adding another commercial property that encourages more vehicle traffic through that area will only increase that. And so those are my major concerns. I appreciate the city's upholding the visioning plan, and would hope that they would, you would all consider that buffer zone between what we want to do commercially on First Street. And I think there are amazing things that we want to do, and I totally support the growth of the downtown area and all up First Street. But where that zone butts up right next to a neighborhood really needs to be considered with traffic flow and with the neighboring properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the item? Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. This item is basically to set for a public hearing, potentially. correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Have there been any notification letters sent to the neighbors?
Yes.
about this? Okay.
I have a question. You stated that the vision plan has been adopted. It's been adopted by the commission, but it has not been voted on by the city council, right?
So the vision plan was adopted by council in November of 2019, and that's in the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So any rezoning requests then should be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. That's the test for rezoning. So the zoning that's currently under consideration that you all forwarded to the council for the new downtown plan, that was designed to be consistent with the downtown vision plan, and that's what you have recommended to the council. So that's the zoning that's currently under consideration by council.
But it has not been approved.
The zoning has not been approved yet, but the comp plan has been adopted, and that was adopted in 2019.
So so the vision plan was adopted, but the zoning has not yet been approved by the city council.
Right, and so this is a rezoning request. And so when you get rezoning requests, the test for rezoning is whether it complies with the comprehensive plan. And so what you look to is what the comprehensive plan is, and that is the downtown vision plan. Is this rezoning consistent with the adopted plan?
Well, when I look at the location of it, it is right next to the McDonald's.
Right.
That's already there. So we have a couple houses, and then we have the McDonald's, and this is going right next to where the McDonald's is, and where the car wash is behind it. I would be open to making an exception to this, simply because of what we heard. Lots are too small, and it's right next to another commercial property already.
Can you speak to the suggestion that the McDonald's property is not zoned commercial, the back half of it?
You know, I don't know the history behind that because that was done in the 1980s. I'm not sure how that property is currently split zone, so I'm not sure how that occurred. You know,
But it's true that the back half of it is still residential?
it's residentially zoned.
Okay.
So maybe it shouldn't have been approved, but I can't second guess what happened, you know, that many years ago. I would say, you know, that the commission considered the same request when you went through the code, the downtown code. The same parties came forward and suggested that that be extended all the way to 2nd Street, and there was a discussion at the commission, and your direction was to keep the regulating plan the same as it was for all the reasons that we've discussed. We do have an example of a recent commercial development that's happened, that's just about ready to, or is just opened, and that's the bank that's on the corner of Clay and 1st Street. They've designed it so that then in the future they can redevelop the back half of that lot for residential that would then face the park. So it could be, and you know, staff did talk to the gentleman that wants to do the Wendy's, and expressed that we would try to help them figure out a way to fit in an urban drive-through, there's a lot of cities that have Wendy's and McDonald's and in their cities in a way that's more urban than the suburban model that we see with the McDonald's. And one thing I also would note is that with the current zoning, the entire properties are zoned residential, whereas the visioning plan does anticipate that the commercial needs some more space, so 2/3 of the block is in that urban general. So it does anticipate needing some more land for commercial. So actually, it moves that zoning boundary with the new regulating plan further to the south. So there is some flexibility with the new zoning to help commercial fit into that block and still leave a residential presence on 2nd Street.
However, our parking requirements and requirements needed to make that a successful commercial spot doesn't fit. I mean, it's going to need more than 2/3 of that. So do we want a successful commercial spot on 1st Street backing up to 2nd, or do we want to hinder business? That's kind of how I look at it.
But, at the same time, they could take, the orientation of the lot doesn't have to go between First and Second. You could go 2 lots along First Street, right? And do the same thing. It would be a matter of acquiring a different piece of property. I just have, we've spent a long time with this new zoning, and then first thing we do is violate it right away.
This isn't a zoning ordinance yet.
But I mean, it's the land use map, and that's what we always go with.
But it's also not uncommon to have to amend the land use map with a rezoning.
Yeah,
And so I think legally, right now, based on the timing, that's kind of the nature of the situation.
But without any kind of idea of how the neighborhood is protected from this, it's pretty hard for me to think I want to change the zoning. Because obviously the residential neighbors don't want it. I wouldn't want it if I lived there, so, it's hard for me to say, well, it's all in the best interest of business. We don't care about your property. Without some sort of mitigating way to go about it, I'm not too excited about jumping in and just changing the zoning.
I have a staff question. Is there any reason that this rezoning proposal was suggested to be C2 instead of CP, or one of the CP zones?
I don't know what you mean by CP.
Well, with the additional, with additional oversight and architectural review and some of that.
So right now, in front of the City Council, the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended new zoning for these properties. And so we didn't suggest any alternative zoning because you just made a recommendation to council for the zoning that they're being considered right now. So that's why we didn't suggest any alternative, because of what the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended.
So the simplest, if this were to be deemed advantageous, would be to convert the R4 piece to what's abutting it. Is that correct?
So it's currently under consideration for the new zoning, which would go into place if City Council adopts the new code.
Right.
And that then gets rid of all the underlying zoning, and it becomes the downtown zoning code.
I would like to just clarify for the record that when we were working on the visioning, I had questioned splitting that character district in the middle of that block. I didn't have any specific example at the time, but it seemed like, in just studying the area, that there were a lot of opportunities for potential problems. As far as a transition from residential use from a retail type of use, I feel like a road is certainly not worse than the middle of a block in tight quarters. When I look at the Scooters property, that isn't a retail space. It's just a drive-through, and albeit that there could be additional space on this site where that line's drawn, it's still crammed. And another thing, if we're talking about the character of the neighborhood, I can't say that McDonald's gets zero credibility in this. They represent some character in the neighborhood along the First Street corridor. And not that the concerns about garbage and light and littering and all that sort of thing aren't quite valid, but I feel like some of those things could be addressed to a very specific degree in site plan review. From the standpoint of a casual observer, this idea and principle seems more attractive overall than a couple of, we'll say, depreciated rentals and a car wash. From a noise standpoint, I would think a speaker seems to be more attractive if there's already one next door anyway than a car wash and dryers and things like that that could be run 24 hours. And as far as litter is concerned, car washes are probably one of the biggest litter generators that I've seen, and just in traveling around as a member of the public. I guess subject to some of the specific legalities as far as the timing of rezoning and everything else, I don't see why we wouldn't at least consider this. Not that there isn't a lot to consider, but based on that, I move to at least schedule the public hearing, and maybe at that point we can get a lot more into this, and then in the meantime, maybe articulate some of the legalities as far as the timing, just because it's so close with rezoning that's already been approved, and then if we were to do the same thing again, I don't know the correct answer as to if that works or not. And maybe that is a quick answer, but anyway, I would move to at least schedule the hearing.
I would second that. And the other thing I would like to bring up is maybe the developer can address some of the issues that some of the neighborhood people have discussed at this point to help satisfy their curiosity about that. But I do think it should go to a public hearing. I second that motion.
Do we need a motion to move this forward for a public hearing?
You don't need a motion. We'll
Yeah.
just set the public hearing for the next meeting. I think that we can do that. I just want to keep the commission focused on the request at hand, which is a rezoning the property to C2. We're not considering the use of the property right now because the zoning can be then used for anything that's allowed in the C2 zone. So if this particular restaurant doesn't go through, the property then has the zoning. So you're being not asked to decide whether a Wendy's goes here, you're being asked whether the zoning is appropriate for this particular location.
Yeah, this is a good project. I mean, it's a great project. The question is whether it's a great project for here, as I said earlier. And I think, we've went through an extensive process with the public to come to terms with what we want our city to be in this area specifically. And that's a process that went over months and months and months. That was very thoughtful, my opinion. And we got a lot of input, and I know it seems like it puts us in a really tough spot as a commission to have an early project and ignore all of that.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And if the law and the ordinances and all that obviously comes first for a body like this, I think it's really important that we, not now necessarily, but I think at the next meeting, I think one of the important topics should be to consider the specifics with the legality of and the obligations to the comp plan and to the timing of future zoning. And one place where I struggle is that if there are zoning changes, whether it's a month away or a year away, the fact is that zoning change is in the future. And so to what extent are we required to play by the rules as they are enforceable today? So I think that's something that would be helpful to get some clarity on when at the next meeting.
How do we decide whether we're moving forward with it seems like we have some differences of opinion.
I think we're getting a little confused between site plan review
Right.
and rezoning the property. We're being asked right now, you're being asked whether to recommend to rezone the property to C2, which could be used for any number of commercial uses, and that commercial zoning would apply. So that test for rezoning is whether it complies with the comprehensive plan. And that's the question you have to ask yourself, does it comply with the current comprehensive plan? If it doesn't, then the comprehensive plan really needs to be amended.
Right.
So does
allow
that
it
need
to
to be
occur.
part of the rezoning proposal?
So we're not approving a Wendy's or something. We're just approving, I mean, the request is to rezone, so it's just changing the use of the land. So
Right, but we can't, what Karen said is that we're not able to rezone if it is in violation with the comprehensive plan. So is the only way we should consider this as or recommend this rather, would it be if it was accompanied with
Right,
an
yeah,
amendment
first
to
you amend the
plan?
comprehensive plan, and then you change the zoning. That's how we've always done it in the past. There's basically two steps to doing that. If you're going to change the zoning, you have to change the map first, and
Right.
so it can be in compliance, and then you go ahead and you change the zoning after that.
And that's where I'm asking for just a little bit of clarity or reassurance, because I don't think we could recommend the rezoning if there was an amendment to accompany the comprehensive plan.
Right, yep, yeah, that's the process.
Yes, I think you're right, Kyle.
Okay.
So we would have to have a different request before us tonight.
You would need to basically agree that the downtown vision plan should be amended. If that is something that the commission wants to take on to amend the comprehensive plan, the vision plan, that would have to occur before the rezoning could be approved.
Am I correct that we cannot
I don't think we can
initiate
at this
that?
point.
I'm sorry, what?
That's not something that we would initiate? Is that something that would have to be initiated by a petitioner?
Usually that's how it happens. If there's somebody that's petitioning something and we believe the comp plan's out of date or out of sync with what the goals are for the city, we often then recommend that they apply for the same thing, to apply that to amend the comprehensive plan at the same time.
So can the commission take it upon themselves to include a recommended amendment to the comprehensive plan with a rezoning proposal like this, or does that have to be part of the proposal?
I believe the city has done that before. I think we've done that before, recommended a change in the land use plan and then rezoned.
I'm just a little bit at a loss, though, because the commission has a pending recommendation at the city council right now for rezoning the property to the new downtown code. And that is consistent with the current vision plan. So the question is the vision plan out of date? Is it not appropriate? So you would be potentially giving a counter recommendation to a recommendation you already have on city council's table right now.
That's kind of the paradox that I was sort of worried about, and why I thought that it'd be good to maybe have some conversations, maybe involve the city attorney and do a little bit of homework there, and then we can have some clarity at the hearing. And it may be that forces our hand, or it may be that we reconsider any movement based on that.
The commission is free to recommend anything that you feel is consistent with what, so I don't think there's any legal issues here to resolve. You are free to, but that is what you should be considering. Is whether the comprehensive plan is out of date here or should be amended. You certainly can make that recommendation, and that is your purview. And can then recommend an alternative zoning. But I'm just noting that would be counter to the recommendation you currently have on the table at council.
Well, I think we've got plenty to think about.
Feels like we're in limbo here. How do we move forward on this, Karen?
No, I think we set the public hearing, and
Okay.
you hear from the public about this, and continue that discussion.
Okay, so we'll set the public hearing for August 25th. All right. Okay, that concludes our new business. Any commission updates, Karen?
I don't have anything for you tonight. I just want to, I guess I can note that staff is wearing masks tonight because we've been, because of the increase in the rate in Blackhawk County, staff is required to wear masks in City Hall just for public safety. And the public can come into the building. They're not required to wear masks, but they're encouraged to wear masks. So you all have the plexiglass protections here for you. So I just wanted to make a note of that. That's why that we are masked up, and you're free to, if you feel comfortable or not comfortable wearing a mask, you certainly can wear a mask while you're here in City Hall.
Okay.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
The problem I have with you guys wearing the masks when you're speaking, when it's being publicized, it's very difficult to hear and understand you. As we heard from Stephanie, she couldn't hear you. And oftentimes when I'm on Zoom and people in the council or staff are wearing masks, it's hard to distinguish and hear what you're saying. So I would just, as far as public goes, I understand that you have to wear them when you're working, but I feel like when we're publicizing something over the television and speaking to the public, maybe you can pull it down when you're speaking. I would highly recommend that.
So that's a policy made by the city administration, so.
Maybe I'll contact the mayor.
you are certainly at will to do that. Another suggestion might be to come up, as we were previously, we were sitting up here between the plexiglass. I don't know if that would make a difference or not, but might be worth considering. All right, with that, I think that closes our business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.